Dragons in context. In the previous videos, I designed a handful of Nephilim. Next up, I want to dig just a little deeper into dragons. I'm also using this as an opportunity to create some full illustrations, which should be fun. No, Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll help me to start to put dragons and giants and humans into context together. It also helps to expose weak spots that can become subjects for more exploration. In this case, the big one is architecture. First off, the bird. One major idea that I'm testing out is that dragons are actually a broad category of Nephilim creatures, giant hybrids created by the Watchers. They'd be oversized, more vicious, and more clever versions of more natural creatures. Here, a slave is frozen in terror, having discovered that one of her master's beloved pets has escaped its enclosure. Now, face to face with a predatory bird the size of a giraffe, can she make it back to the narrow slave passage in time? Early on, I tried to render this image in a more painterly way, but the reality is, I just love line. My favorite art by my favorite artists has always been about line. Mobius, Hal Foster, Frazetta's line work, countless others. To me, line is an amazing story tool, like a language of story. It can't do everything, but I love its clarity and the confidence that it requires. So I used this abandoned attempt at a painting as an underdrawing and started inking. I gave the Quetzalcoatlus a copper collar with a long, linked, broken chain. His beak is bloody, but his tongue is clean. He's not killing to eat. As I moved on to the background, this was where I realized the need to do some major exploration into architecture. For now, this house is made of some oversized stone foundations with wooden walls. I also like the idea of Nephilim dwellings being scaled for giants, with human-scaled additions for their slaves, almost like people are mice allowed to live in their walls. For the giants' wooden doors, I added a carved relief that portrays feathered serpents, Quetzalcoatl, Quetzalcoatlus. With illustration, well, and every other form of human communication, you're trying to make sure your message comes across clearly. At the color and lighting stage, this meant trying to make sure that the figure silhouettes were legible. The slave, in shadow, reads well against the lit stone, but the Quetzalcoatlus' high contrast coat and the peculiar anatomy required a bit of polish. The head read well, but I thought the shadow of the doorpost on the door behind it was competing too much, so I lightened it up to push it further back into the background. The pit. This one was a struggle. Definitely a case of holding on too tightly to an idea at the expense of the image. The idea was to have some Nephilim in shadow, watching as humans are sacrificed in a pit of Dimetrodons. Simple enough, right? It seemed to work as a thumbnail, which usually means it's safe to proceed. I went through the process. I like this flat, layered composition. I thought it helped to put emphasis on the scale differences between humans and giants. Background, figures, costume designs, the Dimetrodons. But the further along it went, the more unruly it was feeling. I really wanted to have those giants in silhouette, so I figured that if I added some color, I could see a glimpse of my original vision, and then my concerns would be assuaged.
Oh, yes! I hate this!
While editing this video, I realized one major reason I dislike it so much. Look at this train wreck of a composition. Flat perspectives can be cool, but these bottom layers are cramped, with figures banging right into major tangent lines. The shadowed Nephilim are supposed to be the most important part of the image, but they're hard to read, with their silhouettes being needlessly obscured by the posts. Then there's all these dead spaces. It was a disaster. I created a new thumbnail with a more dynamic angle, with a better sense of depth. One giant in shadow instead of two, with less figures overall to focus on story. The first attempt was just too complicated, too busy. And this time, I figured I'd build a simple cardboard model in Blender to make things feel a bit more solid. On Tellurian, I used SketchUp for more complicated perspectives. Blender's going to be an important tool moving forward. I foresee a time coming when I'll be sculpting creatures, characters, and building up detailed architecture. Later. For now, this is just a simplistic model to use as an underdrawing. I was able to match up the 3D model to my thumbnail, which normally would be a good sign. but I liked the thumbnail of the previous attempt, so I didn't feel safe just yet. I tried to make the architecture a little more interesting than the first version, with some huge tree trunk pillars roughly carved to look like coiled serpents. I also like the idea of creating two types of stairs, Nephilim steps made of polished marble, and smaller stone slave stairs. I made the giant steps a little too big for comfort, even for the giants, thinking that they'd happily put up with the mild inconvenience just to make them more imposing to humans. Once the whole thing was inked, I was feeling pretty confident, but I wasn't out of the woods yet. I did my color and lighting pass, and I don't know how it got away from me again. It somehow felt like two images trying to occupy the same canvas. Thankfully, Prince Valiant came to my rescue. I recently picked up a collection, and it's become my guiding light. Hal Foster's incredible draftsmanship and clarity are painfully aspirational. I still like the line work and decided to color this image more like a Prince Valiant comic, abandoning whatever my vague vision was to aim for clarity. I tore the color and lighting back down to the studs and built it up more simply. The Nephilim is still in shadow, but it's not what I had originally pictured, and I'm honestly fine with that. The Hoard. To finish off, I wanted to try something classic. A small band of brave, or stupid, thieves dare to approach a slumbering dragon in the hopes of stealing its valuable hoard. The most important word for the dragons of dead gods is re-enchantment. There are some incredible dragon designs out there, from the classic renditions across history and cultures to modern imaginary dragons. A few comments pointed me to Sawyer Lee's Dragon Project. Check out his series where he's designing a whole draconic ecosystem and the cultures within it. Link in description. For dead gods, dragons won't be like classic historical renditions, and they won't be wholly unique imaginary creatures. Imagine that a magic disenchantment spell has been cast on the modern world. For centuries, this spell convinced people that the world is just stuff. It was so effective that people could literally pull dragon bones out of the earth and put them on display for the world to see, and no one would really notice. And this spell would ensure that the only humans that could see the dragons for what they are 6-year-old kids who haven't been thoroughly disenchanted yet. Imagine a spell so effective that being bored by dinosaurs became the central plot point in a Jurassic Park movie. One of my hopes for Dead Gods is to find some way to help put a crack in that spell. It will be worth it if just one re-enchanted person can walk into a dinosaur exhibit, able to see through the veil and stand in awe among the bones of dragons. Thanks for watching. If you like where Dead Gods is going, click all the usual buttons. If you'd like to help support this project, consider subscribing on Patreon. Special thanks to my Dragon Tier patrons, who get to vote on certain aspects of development and get their names in the videos. You could also pick up a copy of my previous visual story, Tellurian, or my personal art book, which is a collection of some of my favorite pieces from the last 20 years. Thanks again for joining me. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I hope you are too. See you next time.